Welcome back, Flyers nitty gritty fans, to Getting Gritty with It with your host, Yariv, Wolok, my partner in crime, for another episode, another exciting episode. Vasili, Gianarakos. Vasili, what's going on, buddy? How you doing?
Doing well. It's Wednesday, hump day, halfway to the weekend. So I am excited for that. Going to the aquarium with some family on the weekend, Ripley's Aquarium, downtown Toronto. So
Sweet.
It'll be a good time. And then just one topic or just one side note I wanted to say, just to kick things off, from all of Flyers nitty gritty and everybody, we just want to send our condolences out to, the families and everything that happened with the shooting in Texas, because that's a terrible thing to happen. And, just condolences to them. That things like that just shouldn't be happening today in our world.
Yeah, man, that it's funny because there's so many of them in the United States. Again, I'm not saying this is irrelevant or anything. It's just like that you lose track. You lose track of them. It's like there have been several shootings of late.
Nuts, man. It's nuts.
But there was one when I was in Israel too. I feel like we live in a very violent world. Having said that, this is the least violent time in human history, and that puts some perspective. Not that this is acceptable. Yeah. It is.
But it's a way to look at it for sure.
Let me reel it back in and just say it's definitely horrific. And shout out, to all the families and obviously condolences. Like, there's nothing I can do. I wish it was something we can really do, but it's just
up to the government, really.
Yeah. No matter, I don't want to get into politics and talk about solving it, because I think that's where arguments start, and that's fine.
Oh, yeah.
But it's just really sad. It just is just really
exactly. Just condolences from us and everybody at the Flyers nitty gritty family to everybody
else.
Yeah.
Well said, Vasili. I appreciate you being the adult in the room right there and bringing it up. So
that's okay.
Good call out there. And sometimes, it's one of those moments where it is kind of people are sending me messages about it, and it's one of those humbling things in life too, where it's regardless of what's going on with the Flyers and all that, it's okay, take a step back. Something like that didn't happen to the people around me and myself.
Yeah.
Makes
you realize, we're all human at the end of the day. And
dude, and life is so fragile.
Exactly.
Man. It's it can be just taken away from you. You can do everything right. You can be a little innocent child. It's, to me, the monster type of person to do something like that. It's just
yeah. Fuck that person.
Dude. Okay. All right, let's bring it back in. Sorry, Jim's. I'm gonna do this to you. This is Jim Steaks. Right after this topic, just Jim Steaks. Shout out to our sponsor, Jim Steaks. Go get a cheesesteak. Cheesesteaks are awesome. It's really nice out. Wait in line outside on South Street. It's pretty much when you're in range of Jim Steaks, you know it. If you live in Philly, you know that the onion and meat smell is so pungent.
I got a cheesesteak actually this weekend in Toronto. It was okay. Obviously not on par with Jim Steaks, though. So go get some Jim Steaks, and then you're good to go.
There was bitterness in it. You know what
exactly. I mean? It wasn't right. I tasted it. I'm this is okay, but I know Jim's would have had me fulfilled. So everybody get some Jim's.
Yeah, dude. It's an AHL level of cheesesteaks.
In Toronto, they're not up to par, man.
Jim's is your Montreal Canadiens.
We're Laval down here, Laval Rockets.
All right. Actually, I should have just said Philadelphia Flyers. That's insulting.
That's okay, though.
Yeah, but I hope people understand. All right. Well, thank you. Shout out to Jim Steaks. All right, let's get into it. So we have a good amount of topics that we wrote down for today, and then I kind of came up with this over the past couple of days. Though I did get inspired by the Locked On podcast, Locked On the Flyers podcast, which is a good podcast. You guys should check it out.
Yeah, shout out to them.
But it is a topic I brought up on this podcast before, and I've written about it. I wrote about it before I started Flyers Nitty Gritty, and when I was at Philly Sports Network, and shout out to them for letting me write for them. And I wrote about this idea of a core. Because, if you guys remember, Vasili, and I know you definitely remember this, as the Flyers were even a somewhat good team, right? A team that you thought had a chance to make it in the first round, or maybe they can make a move and bring a good player in and just take that team to the next level. Or in the second half, they were really good. And, this was the Wayne Simmons, Giroux,
Voracek, Gostisbehere era.
Yeah,
like 20, what, like, are we saying like 2015, 16, 17?
Yeah,
that kind of
something like
range?
that.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually that's probably pretty accurate. And there was always this like idea of like rock the core. We need to rock the core of this team. We need to shake it up.
Trade Brandon Shen and shake it up. Yeah.
And I fucking hated that so much because in my mind, the reason that team wasn't very good is not because it needed a core shakeup, but because it was an incomplete core.
They needed more talent. Yeah.
People, I think, reduced the core to whatever group of player that they could find and say that is the core of this team. Those are the people that I feel drive the team, and maybe they do, and go, that's the core. They're not giving it. The core is not good enough. And when I see the core more as is like the core is more of a breakdown of what is the bare minimum that you can retain as a team of positions on your team within the salary cap era that you need to lock those position downs. And then you can rotate in either free agents, call-ups from the minors, or young guys that you just recently drafted to fill in the outside positions of these core positions to still be a Stanley Cup contender.
That's a good way to look at it, because basically you can break it down to the fact that every single Stanley Cup team, there's not a blueprint and a specific blueprint as to like what they need to win, but you almost always need a number one center, you need a number one goalie, you need a number one D, you need like a decent, like a star power winger, and probably a good second line center.
Okay. So I think I agree with what you're saying as far as those are definitely needs. And you can even make the case that maybe they're majority of the need, but I think that's enough to not be a bottom feeder.
Yeah, for sure.
We're talking about what is enough to be a highly competitive team, right? Which is where we want to be.
Yeah.
Which is what I think a core is. Okay. So Tampa Bay has a core. That's how you can lose an entire line of hockey and then replace them, with other players that are not well known, and then they go in and then they look potentially even better than they did when they had on paper a better team.
That makes sense to me, though, because I mean, technically for Stanley Cup contender, you need multiple lines of really good players to even have a shot or even get that far in the first place. So I like it.
100%. So let me break it down for you, so then we can, and then we have a bunch of topics to talk about too, and we can like use this as the theme to essentially talk about everything. And I think this is how we should really think about the Flyers in general. Now, maybe people don't agree with me. Maybe my list is even too big. Maybe we can make a case to narrow it down a little bit. But overall, this is kind of what I realized, that I think you really need to win a Stanley Cup. Now, I'm also going to say, to really win a Stanley Cup, your team needs to be awesome. That means all of your lines need to be good, okay? That means all of your lines need to be good, and you need to have either the best goalie in the league or two really good goalies, or one goalie play out of their mind, which happens, or you need enough to compensate in other positions for a particular weakness, which can happen, like the Flyers going to the finals, right? But they still didn't win because they didn't have a goalie.
Think about Chicago, though. They didn't have a goalie either. Their team was just slightly that better much more deeper than the Flyers were at that point.
Also true, but like you can make a case that Niemi was still better.
Oh, yeah, he was probably better, yeah.
But not by much, right? Emery, if he was healthy, would have been the best goalie in that series.
Yeah,
if the Flyers might have had the edge.
I always go back to Emery, man. Like, if they had him on that run, it would have been a different story, I think.
Okay, so this is my core that I think is required. And this list might be a little long for some people, but I think this is really what's required to hold on to be a highly competitive team every year. So you need a top line, an entire top line, a center, a left wing, a right wing. And again, these don't mean, let me also say this, they don't have to be the best in the league at what they do. They have to be at a high level. You have to recognize them as a core player. For instance, Provorov is a core player of this team. Couturier is a core player of this team. Okay. These guys drive a lot of the way the team is built. They're built around them. These are two players for sure that are part of that. Right now, TK is part of the core. Farabee is part of the core, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's an example. So, top line, second line essentially, and a third line center.
That's fair enough. Yeah, that makes sense.
7 forwards, and I'll show you where there's evidence of this that the NHL recognizes this as well. By the way, the defense, 3 defensemen.
Okay, that makes sense to me too.
Top
I was going to say the same. Yeah.
And another strong defenseman that can fill in the middle, or 3 defensemen, right? 1 throughout each line, but 3 defensemen, and then your goalie, 1 goalie.
So overall, that's what 7,
that's
10,
11
guys. Okay.
It's 11
out of 20. What out of usually there's on a roster there's what 19 or 20 guys. So
20 or 21, including a backup.
21. Yeah. So that's like half. That's like half-ish.
Right.
So
you can make the case that you could say 10, and one of your second line wingers, you could say maybe that's not a core position.
Yeah.
You say, okay, I need 1 secondary winger, but my top 3 centers. And again, we're not talking about just icing a team. We're talking about building a championship caliber team that you can rotate other players around to be good.
I like the breakdown. I think it makes total sense just based on, I mean, look at the past 10 Stanley Cup teams and majority of them.
Identify them.
Yeah, majority of what you've just laid out, those teams had. So like, for example, like if I'm going to go Tampa Bay right now, they have Braden Point, second Stamkos for the centers, and then third
Cirelli.
Actually Cirelli too.
They kept Cirelli.
Yeah, so that's 3, and then you have or surrounding them Kucherov, Killorn, Palat, Nick Paul. I'm going to put in there too because he's been really crucial for them, honestly.
But he's a newcomer.
Yeah, he's a newcomer too. Like that, it's hard to go through it. And then on the D for Tampa, you got Hedman, Sergachev, McDonough. That's clear. And then even you could put Chernak in there as a 4 if you wanted because he's been there throughout the whole thing.
Is he a part of their core? They would probably be like, he's very important to us. But at the end of the day, if I had to cut down people, like if I had to say,
it's those 3: Sergachev, Hedman, and McDonough. Yeah,
that you can build around that.
100%.
If you look at the expansion draft, look at the protection that they allow you to do: 7 forwards, 3 defensemen, and a goalie. Either that, you can either protect that core or just 8 players, right? I think was the other option.
Yeah, exactly. And the goalie.
So they're like, either you protect your core, right, and give up in abundance, or you can hold on to whatever it is that you have an abundance of, but you're definitely giving up a piece of your core.
Piece, yeah. I mean, the way that you broke it down there is perfect because it actually literally shows that based on the protection list, that's what the NHL thinks as well. So I tend to agree. Just look at just look at Tampa and then go back and look at those Pittsburgh teams and even Chicago. All those teams, same blueprint. Like even that Penguins team that won back-to-back, you had Crosby, Malkin, and then
Stahl,
and then also you had in the other years it was Bonino, and he was just as crucial to them too on the third line. So it's crazy.
It's a humongous role.
Yeah,
your third line center is more important than your second line winger. That's why I made the case that you could drop one of the wingers, even if you want to. If you really want to be strict. But I think it's really kind of a luxury to have 3 scoring or 4 scoring wingers. A lot of times you have a guy kind of filling in. Maybe he's more physical. Maybe he's more two-way.
More defensive.
More of a bubble 3 guy. You know what I mean? You can get away with that. So that's why I said, but you still need 2 of those guys to be high level.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That you need a legitimate top. So let's look at the Flyers. Okay. And this is kind of what I was trying to point out is like, this is how I look at the team, where I think a lot of other people look at a core as a collection of 3, 4 dudes. Like in the case, the core was Couturier, right? This is what people used to talk about. Couturier, Giroux, Voracek,
Simmons, yeah. And then like you add Provorov in there maybe.
Yeah, but he was too young, so people didn't.
Back then, yeah.
They left him alone. That was the core, and we had to shake the core, the rock, and then JVR had to rock the core, and it's like
really
there's not enough. No,
exactly. Really needed to add.
That was my point every time. I was like, it's like no. You have an incomplete core. I was like, you have holes.
You don't have enough good players
Yeah.
to put around them, really.
So you need an entire team of good players to win a Stanley Cup. Now, if you have those core pieces filled by very good players, you can obviously fill it in with less competent players. A team like Edmonton's a great example, where now this is the best Edmonton team they've had. It's clear they're playing well, but you remove McDavid and Draisaitl off that team, their core is not as strong as those two guys.
They're probably not even. I mean, honestly, you remove those guys, they're probably not even in the playoffs.
Right. Where a team like Tampa Bay is not really like that. Each
you could take Kucherov away for half a season and then still win the cup,
and they'd still be one of the best teams. And they didn't have Point the other night, right?
Their first cup, they didn't have Point the other night. I don't know. I think he might be back for the third round. They're saying for conference finals.
Yeah, I think
so. But their first, this is the first, and this is crazy just to speak to Tampa's depth, kind of go off the rails here.
Yeah,
but Stamkos was literally out their whole first Stanley Cup run where they won the cup.
Yeah,
he was out for like he played 2 games.
He scored he played like a shift, had a goal, and then went
and then got injured. Yeah,
exactly. Back down.
So it's like crazy. You lose a guy like Stamkos, and
he's a 100-point player. Yeah, he's no joke.
Disgusting, man.
Though I will say those guys, their statistics benefit from playing with a really strong team. So the reason he's able to have a 100-point season is the same reason why when Giroux was traded to Florida, he was on a 106-point pace.
Well, you play with good players, more opportunities to score.
More opportunities to score. If you're a playmaker, forget about, which obviously Stamkos is everything. Stamkos is a great player. Don't get me wrong. He's awesome. He's elite at everything. I think.
We'll put him on Arizona. I don't know if he's having 100-point season.
That's my point. Maybe he's putting up 80. Maybe he's putting up 80. Right.
Exactly.
85 points or whatever. But that can be a 10 to 15 to 20 point difference. In a season, really. That's a lot. Imagine you add 15 points on a Travis Konechny. Are people even complaining?
No, people are probably excited.
They're going, all right, well, at least we have TK,
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. All right, so let's define who that is for the Flyers, which I thought would be fun to do.
Who's the core? You want to start off?
Yeah, I mean, we can kind of just go. We can. It's gonna be like kind of like a team thing because I don't think we're gonna be that far off. Like obviously, like we can see. This is what I think we can do. We can identify them for the Flyers, and then we can say, hey, what needs to be switched here to be stronger?
Or what do they need to add? Yeah, exactly. I think that's a good way to go about it. Okay, so
and we can also say, hey, maybe the core is actually not that bad.
Yeah.
And if we can add support around that core, because maybe the core is not as strong as we need it to be. And what can we replace in that core to maybe make a large impact? Right?
Okay, cool. So
the defense will be complicated.
That's where I was kind of thinking in the back of my head.
Let's start with the forward, but let's start with the forwards.
Okay, so for defense, or not defense, for forward, it's pretty easy, or easier to kind of pinpoint exactly who it is. So obviously,
we're gonna do 7 forwards. We're sticking to 7. By the way.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so start with Shakaturi. I mean, he's everything for the team. You saw how bad they were without him in the lineup, and we pointed out many times on the show. With him this season, they were 500. Without him, they were well below that number. So it just shows how 100%. He is. So Couturier, and then first line. I mean, I guess we'll put like Farabee and Konechny. I'll go in there. So that's 3.
Okay.
And then after that, we get Hayes in there. So that's 4. Atkinson 5. 6 would be. I'm going to say Tippett because, I mean, they traded a lot to get him. So
good point.
He's in their future plans. So that's 6. And then 7, you'd have to put in Lawton, I guess, at this point.
I think that is accurate.
He's
fine. Current
he signed for 5. He signed for like 4 more years after this season, so he signed for a long-term deal. The team clearly thinks of him as a leader and someone who's going to stick around, who they want to stick around, so I'll put him in there. I mean, in terms of talent level and like ultimate like production that might occur in the future, Morgan Frost could probably take that position.
That was my point about trading Scott Lawton, by the way.
Yeah,
this is where my brain comes. This is how my brain works. Go ahead.
Which makes a lot of sense. So that's your 7. Maybe you can alternate Frost in there. You could probably argue that for the Flyers to be better and be a contender and be very competitive, they need to upgrade that 3C probably past Lawton and past Frost. And maybe that's where like the pick comes in at number 5. You draft a really good center. He moves into that slot.
So okay. dude, you're like, it's so funny how you're like saying all the things where it's like, so for people who actually listen to this on a regular basis, and I talk about getting a center, like this is what I'm looking. This is how I see shit in my head. I don't see Scott Lawton as a best option for a third line center.
Not a contender, yeah.
I see Kevin Hayes as a great option as a third line center.
Ultimately, I mean, for the forwards, the best case scenario would be you pick a high end player at 5 who happens to be a center. He slides into B2, maybe even 1, and then Couturier slides down to 2, Hayes slides down to 3. That'd be the optimal thing. You get like a superstar at 5.
Let's just say Bedard is number 1, which, by the way, I'm playing NHL 22, traded all out, got Bedard top pick. So, and I have Bedard.
Flyers should take your approach.
I got rid of Hayes and JVR. I got an offer for JVR. I was like,
lots of money.
And then I traded Kevin Hayes because again, you get rid of $15 million off our cap. What can we do with that in an offseason? A lot
of stuff.
Having said that, Kevin Hayes is good.
Yeah.
But again, optimally, let me get this out. Optimally, you want him as third line center. If you could have Couturier as a second line center, you're talking about Stanley Cup contender.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Right. But he's good enough to be a number 1.
Yeah.
So you really need to find a number 2.
Yeah.
Where I think the Flyers are actually weak at is if, again, I said like your number 7 forward, which is like your left or right winger, most likely your right winger on the second line, because your left winger typically is a goal scorer and we need more goal scoring. So if you look at that, like Tippett, I think what you said is really smart, actually.
Yeah.
But the problem is Tippett is unproven talent.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I just put him in there based on like.
But you're right. You're right. No, I think you're absolutely right because Lindblom by the end of the year was at the bottom. Noah Cates.
JVR, I'm not
projected. JVR, yes, he's there, but we can all agree. Again, this is the problem with the Flyers. You look at JVR, you got $7 million a year. It's like, dude,
not a part of the core. Yeah. And why are they paying him $7 million to be, not a part of the core? So.
Exactly. Like he's not a core player. So Tippett is that, and again, this is where the Flyers kind of are, and this is the problem. Farabee, really good, probably not ready to be number 1 left wing, great number 2 left wing, right? Yeah. And then you combine that with the fact that TK and Atkinson are about the same level.
Might not be a number 1 on the best team.
Which right now is the second line right wing.
Yeah, exactly. So you really need 2 first line guys kind of to replace the JVR.
But if TK and Farabee jump into a legitimate top line position, then that changes a lot on this team.
And then if Tippett develops to the point,
any one of those 3, and I think that's what the Flyers are banking on.
Yeah, and then I mean, of course, too. One thing I forgot to mention is if there's some sort of we're breaking it down, but
like you don't have a Kucherov on your wing.
No, you don't have a Stamkos even on your wing.
And a Stamkos, Point, and Cirelli trio. Like Cirelli is probably as good as Kevin Hayes.
Yeah, I'd say. I mean, probably
maybe even better.
Probably better too, just based on the contract, right? Like you're not paying him $7 million as well, so
he's a big kid. He plays a very similar game to Kevin Hayes.
Yeah, exactly. And one thing to mention too is, I mean, there might be another forward added to that group, because the Flyers want to add a big name kind of player. So I'm assuming there'll be somebody new into that. Probably we can kind of maybe revisit after free agency. So what were you saying for your forwards? Kind of the same thing.
For what? Sorry.
For your forwards that you would pick as a 7, like kind of the same outlook.
That's what I was saying. When you map it out that way, it's kind of obvious.
There's really nobody else to pick. Yeah.
Because the line. This is my point that is your core though. Like that's what and you can see flaws in the Flyers core. The top line center wasn't even there. The guy who was supposed to be third line center also wasn't there. The guy who was our top line left wing was then moved into top line center. Think about how horrible that is for your core.
Yeah, and then traded.
And then traded.
So we're talking about Giroux, if people don't know.
And a lot of those core players were injured all year round.
Pretty much.
Not the other guys, the core players had injuries.
Yeah.
And that includes Scott Lawton.
Yeah. Which
also
not ideal.
He's a core player on this team.
Because then you have guys who aren't, as talented or even close to it, having to step up into roles they just can't
that they're not ready for.
Which is what happened, and then you get a season like last season.
Yes,
pretty much.
So what I'm kind of getting to a little bit with the forward group is you have an abundance. A lot of these, and we know this, right? This is not rocket science, but we have a lot of these like middle 6 guys. maybe some of them can develop. Like maybe Bobby Brink will be an 80-point player in the NHL.
It's too early to tell.
I don't know, right? I don't think he necessarily projects to be that right now, but it could happen. I mean, it's
possible. He has the talent. He just has to, develop it. And I really would like to see him maybe get some AHL time and kind of round into his game and then come up.
Sure. But we don't have anybody who's proven to do that except for Atkinson's been close at points in his career. He's probably not at this point. At this point, he's probably heading more towards middle 6 forward on our team.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe not next
20,
year.
Probably 25 goals to 30, 55, 60 points, which is like a middle six guy. Yeah.
Ideally, he's a second line winger on our team, right? Not top line. So that means TK. That's a position where I can see why people are like, let's trade TK. Because I'm not saying we would. I'm not saying we should. But I'm saying if you can, though, upgrade TK. Like if you can give TK and Jay O'Brien. Again, I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah.
People might not think that's even realistic, but let's say you can give both of them for, I don't even know an example, but it had to be somebody like around his age, and let's just say Philip Forsberg. I'm just throwing out a name. He's a little bit older, but somebody around the same. But if you can be like, I can upgrade that position right now and swap one of those guys out, maybe there's a point to do it. Maybe there's a point to packaging Bobby Brink and TK together to team be like, hey, you guys are short on the right side. I'll give you a guy who still has potential to be a top line guy and another guy who has potential to be that for your guy who's older and like leaving.
Established. Yeah.
So that's why I said Phil Ford. I don't know. That's one thing. The other thing is like bringing a guy like Goudreau, pushes other people down, gives other people time. But the fact is the Flyers lack a top line guy. And it's noticeable, left or right wing or center.
Yeah. Or for example, you could do like even just
center most importantly.
Yeah, I would say center is probably most important, and just
compensate.
And just over history, I mean, usually teams with strong center depth of the middle tend to have a lot of success, especially in the playoffs, because just they match up well against other teams and their best players, right? And you can place wingers that might not be as talented with a uber talented center. He's going to elevate their games as well.
Nailed it.
Interesting thing too about what you brought up. Like let's say you did trade a TK, something that like could be a possibility or upgrade. I mean, let's say you did like a TK and a prospect and a pick for like a Nylander. I mean, you're upgrading on skill there.
Like I honestly don't even think
something to that level.
I agree with you. I don't know if Nylander is even enough. I guess
no.
he could be considered. He hasn't played that role.
No,
but he probably can be a top line winger in the NHL.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like skill wise, he has it. I don't necessarily see him as that.
He's never got the chances in Toronto to be that top line guy, like a bona fide top line guy.
Well, it's not so much that it's just I see shortcomings in his game the same way I see TK. So I feel like I'm only really seeing a marginal increase in productivity. Like what would TK put up playing for Toronto production wise? Probably different type, probably not a goal scorer, but he probably put up a lot more assists. And I don't know. It just doesn't feel like enough an upgrade. I'm talking about more like well, I don't know. Nylander's pretty fucking good, but I see what you're saying. Like a guy at least bona fide, like 40 potential goal scorer or a known 80-point producer. Right now, Konechny can be relied upon between 50 and 60 points a year.
Yeah, like for me, the only way I'm trading Konechny, hypothetically, is if I'm getting, like you said, bona fide 75 plus points.
Exactly.
Like something along those lines.
Point per game player and up. Like that in a package. And maybe that's what it would cost, I don't know if that's what I'm saying. I just question a little bit whether Nylander's that guy, but a guy of, with that type of pedigree for sure. But I think that for a forward group, you can just see where the holes are, and you can see what happens without a guy like Couturier and Hayes for majority of the season.
Falls apart because they don't.
There's no fucking team.
There's not even a core. There's no structure, and then also a lot of those guys that you would say need to be elevated by their centers. Their centers are missing. So like you think playing with Couturier and playing with Hayes versus Scott Lawton doesn't help like Konechny and Farabee. Not like no diss on Lawton or anything, but he's not the same level of those guys, right?
To that point, actually, if we do have one difference is that I don't see Scott Lawton as this team sees him as a core player. Is he talented enough? In some ways, for sure. Do I like him enough to be a core guy? Sure, but I see it as in a case where maybe his personality is not easily replaced.
Yeah.
And then maybe that's a good argument for
He's
it.
de facto, like he's there as basically like who else will you put there in my eyes?
He's a guy who like is the number 8 forward.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Fair enough.
But realistically, there's a reason why Morgan Frost was penciled into that corp. Morgan Frost was hopefully that guy.
Yeah.
That Nolan Patrick is somebody they were hoping. Again, remember what those centers were? It was Couturier, Hayes, Pat. This is why Brayden Shen was traded.
Yeah.
Right? Brayden Shen also proved, you didn't fill our second line center role, or you were a top line winger, but we're already getting, we already have a bunch of wingers or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like they had
we have Jake Forjak, so we don't need you.
We had JVR,
Simmons and JVR, yeah.
JVR, G, and Voracek.
And Simmer, yeah.
Yeah. So like I think a lot of ways, like I think that was the thought that Hextall had.
Which makes sense. And like I do that trade like 10 out of 10.
I don't have a problem
with return.
I don't have a problem with that trade. I didn't think that was a bad trade.
No, I thought it was a good trade.
I think there
value-wise,
other mistakes made here, and I think they even go beyond trades. They kind of brought us to this point. But so that's it for the forwards. And just looking at free agency, unless you're going to get Evgeny Malkin, which would be hilarious if we sign him, there's not really much out there from a center position that'll be a complete game changer for us. But that's why the Jack Eichel thing, I was so pro getting Eichel,
which would have made sense because he
you have a
number
1-2
one.
punch of Eichel, Couturier, and then Kevin Hayes.
Just kind of nuts.
That's a mean team to play against, dude.
Yeah, just depth wise and matchup wise. First of all, because then you can literally free Couturier up in that situation to be like not your shutdown guy, but essentially like sick him on the best players.
I mean, look what happened to LA when they added Danault and
I wanted Danault, man. Last offseason, I was calling for Danault. I'm like, he's not going to be that much money. I think it would have been a good move, but in hindsight, nothing you can do now.
Yeah.
I think at least just the way they're looking this offseason and the way the center depth looks for the free agents. Like you said, other than Malkin, there's not much I'd be interested in. I doubt Bergeron's going anywhere if he even decides to play again.
I'm always in wait and see mode for the UFA stuff because those names fall off really fast.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, the best case scenario for the Flyers would be get a Gaudreau, and then one of your wingers somehow becomes expendable, and you trade that winger for an upgrade at center, maybe.
Yeah.
That's possible, but like there's so many moving pieces. We got to really wait and see. We can't predict too much.
Yeah, but there's parts of that core to upgrade. I think people, and again, I think one of the things we have to think about is like we can't have a bunch of guys who are second line wingers on this team.
It's not going to
at a certain point. At a certain point, maybe you do need to make a move. Yeah. Maybe you do need to package and go for be like, okay, well, I have my top. That's the hardest part to fill. Top line winger, I got him.
Yeah.
The hardest part to fill, second line center, got it. Would you rather have a second line winger or second line center?
I'd rather have the center.
It's like these are things that I think this team, maybe not this year, maybe if they're not good going in this, next year again, and it's one of those years where you're just accruing assets, then all of a sudden you pick up a bunch of young guys, you have some assets to move around, then
make a trade or two, draft another high-end
cap
player.
Space, you have leverage. Then you can bring in that 27-year-old center to kind of, which is what I think they tried to do with Kevin Hayes. And that's why when he came here, it was Kevin Hayes supposed to fill in that spot with the Nolan Patrick. Again, these core positions. So let's move on to the D. So the D3, and I think they're obvious.
Yeah.
If you roll the season back to the Flyers beginning of the season, you can easily say Provorov, Ellis, and Sanheim.
Yeah, I'm going to say Provorov, Ellis, Sanheim, and then notable Cam York.
Right. And then even Ristolainen, right? You're like, okay, an important part, but you're like, Ristolainen is a replaceable part in a sense. It's difficult to replace, right? But in the sense that if those three spots are nailed down, I can rotate other people. I can rotate, obviously, number 6.
Yeah.
And I can rotate number 5 in, which teams typically do. I can rotate my number 4.
Exactly. Where it's like, hypothetically, let's say this probably isn't going to happen because they just signed him to a 5-year deal. But I mean, if the Flyers tomorrow, found a trade for Ristolainen that got them, a good third line center or something like that, I wouldn't hesitate to pull the trigger on that.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of people would have been happy for that. But here's the reason that he got that trade, which is obvious to me, is because Chuck Fletcher was looking at the market of defensemen, and I don't really think that there's much better options than Ristolainen out there this year for UFA.
At least for what he brings, unless
Manson, maybe.
Manson might have been a similar type of player,
Again,
but doesn't have
better?
that's the thing. Manson might have been a little bit better defensively, let's say, but his offensive game, he has none. So you know what I mean? Ristolainen in an offensive situation could produce you some points, score a bit more. So you got to look at that too, right? It's a production-based league, so that factors into it as well. Other than that, I mean, I like Klingberg. Is Klingberg like Ristolainen? Does he play anywhere close to him? No. Is Klingberg a better defenseman? Yes, but I mean, also he's going to cost way more money. So you got to look at it realistically.
Well,
right?
the problem is the question mark with Ellis,
right?
That's it. Yeah. And again, look at the core pieces, and 2 of the 5 most important pieces on that team, or 6, were out all year round.
Yeah, exactly. Which is, I mean, do that with any team, and they're gonna
suffer a little bit. Do it with a team that's already not that good,
and they're fucked.
And then they're fucked. They're fakakta.
That's basically what happened with the Flyers this season.
Yeah.
And then, okay, wait, interesting. Let's say Ryan Ellis is out. Let's say he's not coming back. I don't sorry for the negativity, but let's say that happens.
I mean, the chances are out there.
Would you put Cam York in that core if there's no Ellis?
I think it works in the sense that you automatically slot people into that role.
That's what I automatically put him there.
You're now there, and you can make the case that it's Risto, but you're now there, and then you can ask yourself, is this guy really ready to be part of a core?
Oh, I don't think he's ready, but I would put him there over Risto. That's the only thing.
Okay, that's my point. So that's how you have to kind of think of it, because you have depth and you have rotations, right? Maybe you have 3 top line right wingers on your team, which happens sometimes. Teams aren't even aware of it all the time because the other guy doesn't play as much, and then he goes to another team and he starts scoring, right?
I mean, you could look at Minnesota and say Kaprizov, Fiala, Zuccarello, they all had over 75 points. So. And they're all wingers. It's just crazy.
Exactly. So you can have all that stuff, and that's what I said. You can have an abundance in certain areas. But these are the positions that I think you need to lock down to be a very good team every year and have the best player of that position in those spots that you can find. So it makes a case where you see a guy even like Oscar Lindblom, you're like, okay, well, can Lindblom's spot be done by Noah Cates? Yes, great. Can we package Lindblom and I don't know, Lawton and get a legitimate third line center?
Yeah, exactly. And those are the questions that Fletcher and his staff really need to address and look at, because like you said, there's an abundance in certain areas in this team where they can turn that abundance into a piece that's going to help kind of fulfill that core a little better than it already is now, right? Because
if the core is strong, right?
Yeah, exactly.
The things you fill around it, you can take more risks. You can take a risk with 2 young third line wingers,
You have a really good third line center.
Yeah, or not a great fourth line. You can still be highly competitive because the rest of the things are all defined. Your third line will be very tough to play against. And we've seen that with the Flyers, where they're a good team and they don't have the best fourth line center. You have Blair Betts on the fourth line. It's like we can point to these times. There's even a team like what's it called? Belmar, where's he playing? Colorado or
he's in Tampa right now,
dude? It's like he's been playing on the 2 best teams in the league, just back and
Tampa,
forth.
Colorado, Vegas, all 3 of them.
Right, he's great on his team, but there's a big drop off between him and the other guys above him, especially offensively, right? So he's just super stable in that role, but you can rotate another guy in that position.
And Tampa's not losing a beat if you switched out, let's say, Balmer with, I don't know, let's say you put Scott Lawton there instead. Is there much of a difference?
And it explains Tampa's trade of Boris Kachuk and Taylor Radish for Hagel, right? Because didn't Hagel walk in and be the third line center immediately?
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's what
and they had some injury trouble. Like I know, like Sorelli was banged up all year, so like we want to kind of solidify, which is what good teams do. They realize, okay, our strength is our center depth. Our strength is our core. There's a piece of our core that is a little banged up. Let's get somebody to help him out. And that's why Tampa's such a good team year in, year out, because they address that and then they fix it immediately.
Yeah.
Which is what they did, right?
So, I mean, it shows how big of an impact not having Ryan Ellis on this team is for both Sanheim and Provorov. And even I know people don't want to talk about this, but Provorov outplayed Sanheim at the end of the year. I didn't hear anybody say that.
But he did.
I know that Sanheim played better, and there was a portion there that Provorov really was not playing well. And Sanheim looked great at times. I'm very happy with the progress Sanheim's made in a lot of ways. But we're like pitting them against each other. It doesn't make any sense. We have 3 guys that should have been carrying this D. Only 2 of them were around this year, and this team was just mauled by injuries and bad play and bad team play and everything. Like, everything is wrong with this team right now. I get that, but some of these core pieces are pretty good for what they are. And if Ryan Ellis is his normal strong self, this defense is actually pretty competent. Without him, though, it's a humongous hole because neither Risto or York are ready for that. I mean, Risto's not that guy. I never thought he was. Number 4 on the team, I think he's good. He's great for a 4.
But he's not in those core of defensemen. Like,
right.
I think we can agree on that.
Which is why people like scoffed at the amount that was traded for him, because you're like, yo, this is not even a core guy. But then you look at the trade for like Ben Sherratt, and you're like, it's kind of just the prices are insane.
That's just what it is for a defenseman who's like a right-hand shot and is like in a top 4. It's going to be around 4-5 million.
Yeah,
that's just the going rate in the NHL. People the thing is too is the cap goes up, the salaries go up. So I think people used to equate like 5-6 million, you're like a top end guy, but now it's more like 10 million, 9 million, you're top end, 8 million. You know what I mean? So all the prices go up, things like that. It's interesting because I think Cam York, I mean, I would place him as a potential to be that core guy, but he's too young to know. Right?
Exactly. And maybe eventually he replaces Sanheim or Provorov.
Yeah.
Maybe he's that level, and then the Flyers have a luxury because they but again, you're looking at the Flyers don't have that luxury on D. No. There isn't anybody outside of York right now coming in through the system, which you look at the draft this year. And you look at guys like Nemec and Juracek, and you kind of understand why the Flyers would go out and draft a defenseman, potentially a guy they think could be like a legit top pairing guy, because they're like kind of low. The reason I'm not for that is the same reason Steve said, is like you can find elite defensemen later in the draft. They they typically develop slower. So I'm like not really jumping to draft a defenseman when there's a clear need as for a number 2 center or even a future number 1 center, because eventually Shakaturi will be a number 2. And if we're not getting Cooley and we're not getting Wright, maybe Matthew Savoy, I don't know what we're getting, but we better hope we get a guy who can play on that level to fill that role, because it's going to be a humongous hole. It's like the 3 positions, and we can get to the last one now, goaltender, and that one's actually. This is why people are not freaking out, because you see names, you see Hart, you see Fedotov, you see Ersan, you see Sandstrom, Ustimenko, and Kolosov.
Yeah, they just drafted last draft, and he was
19
pretty well.
When they drafted him.
He played well in the MHL this season.
Dude, these Russian goalies are killing it.
Yeah.
So okay, talk mostly about the core. We still have some other stuff to get into.
Yeah, and one thing I wanted to actually...
Yeah, go ahead.
I thought that was a good exercise, and it kind of really lays out, for people that, it isn't really 4 guys. Like, it isn't like, how they think, 3-4 guys in the core. It's really like you have those top-end guys that you need, obviously, that are the main and they're the most important part to that core. But you still need really good players surrounding them for it all to fit and for you to actually be like a Stanley Cup contender.
Yes.
A la Tampa Bay, a la Carolina.
And that's how you can sustain it.
Yeah,
from year to year without.
Look at Tampa; they kept all those core guys that we mentioned, and they shifted out their whole third line from the Cup run last year, and then they have a whole new third line of Hagel, Paul, and then Ross Colton, and it's no change for that.
Toronto. Think about the teams that have been good.
Colorado.
Like literally, you can look at their team and see
Aubrey
their core.
Kubel is on their third line.
I remember Kadri played for Toronto at one point. Again, Aubrey Kubel is not a core player.
No.
You know? That's why Fletcher, like, even with Jerry Mayhew, he's like, yeah, the guy's 29 years old. He's got maybe he has a chance to be a core player for Anaheim for a year.
Maybe.
You know, maybe on a bad team he can be at the very least top 9. But if you have like a top 7 role on an NHL team, you're a very good player in the NHL.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it's just the quality of those players can vary. And then, you know, sometimes they just, you know.
Yeah, and then you got to surround that core with the right pieces to kind of offset their game.
Yeah.
And that's where it gets into more like a puzzle, right? Where we have our guys. Now what do we need to get, you know, over the hump?
It's why the Pens have been good for so long. Why the Caps have been so
that's
good.
what Florida's got to figure out this season, right? They have their core there, but obviously the pieces they put around it didn't equate, didn't work out, and they're going to have to change some of those pieces and try again.
That's why I don't think Toronto's blowing anything up. I think maybe they can be like, oh, Nylander, we can move him because we're so strong at wing. We can afford
somebody else that will help us somewhere, you know, maybe on D or something like that.
But honestly, I don't even know if it's worth it for them to do it. I really don't.
For the Leafs perspective, at least with Nylander, the only way or the only thing that makes sense for me would
is if it's an even trade.
Yeah, it's an even trade. Like if you're losing
from a position of need.
Yeah, that's the thing. The only way it makes sense really is like if they get you know, another defenseman that they can that's a little better than Muzzin, then it kind of makes sense for them. Another way
Lindholm for Nylander would have been like
that would have been pretty solid.
Yeah,
something like that would have made sense. And then also maybe they just want like a more like a defensive center that can kind of take those matchups away and then free up Matthews a little more.
If you go by the core thing that we were talking about, you see there's an obvious hole in their D.
Yeah, that too.
They have a bunch of guys who are capable of being number 3s.
Yeah. And then you have
number 2.
Yeah, then you have Riley, who is like a number 1/number 2.
Yeah, but again, he's a legit number 1 if you give him a number 2.
Which they haven't given him. They've had him play with Labushkin, who like is decent, but
number 6.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not the greatest. I mean,
sound familiar?
Yeah, right. I mean, look at the Flyers. They had Braun and
well, I like if you look at Giordano and I like Brody, but Brody is like a number 3, 4.
Yeah,
you know,
Gio's like a third pair guy now at this point.
That's what I'm saying. Giordano, they're all those guys. Even Muzzin was their number 2 for a little bit, but he's not. He's more of a number 3 now.
Yeah,
you know, they don't have anybody.
4 as he's aging a bit.
They have Sandin and Liljegren who's not really ready, so their core is incomplete.
Yeah,
thus can't be able to get out of the first round.
Exactly, you got to add something.
I'm sure that they will try to trade for Provorov. I guarantee that they would try. But we're not trading Provorov for Nylander. I promise you that.
No, yeah.
There's almost no chance the Flyers would do that.
It would have to be a way.
It would have to be It would have to be Nylander, and they're not. And despite what Jason Martinez, I don't think it's a good idea to be like, oh, we're going to give you TK and Provorov for Marner. We're going to take on an $11 million contract and put a gap in our D that we probably can't solve anytime soon, and trade from a position of strength.
Well, the thing that would knock me off of doing that, and I think this is what Chuck Fletcher probably realizes himself, is that if you trade away Ivan Provorov or Travis Sanheim, let's put both of them into the equation, and then Ryan Ellis can't play, you are fucked. Like,
you have nothing.
You fucked yourself.
York and Ristel. Let's say we trade Provorov, the guaranteed defenseman on your team are Cam York, Sanheim, and Ristolainen.
That sounds like a bottom 5 NHL team to me. So
it is. You're taking the guy who plays the most out of everybody off the team.
It's not a great recipe for success.
Even if Ryan Ellis comes back and you remove Provorov, your defense is still worse.
I still think, for sure. I still think the key in this season is Ellis, to be honest, because there's a telling thing that I noticed.
This is why Ristolainen got that contract, dude.
Just in case,
because they're worried about it.
Yeah, exactly. But also for the fact that, I mean, this is telling. And I mean, if you listen to Fletcher's press conference, which probably a lot of people who listen to this did listen to his press conference. But if you listen to it, he said, well, we're going to really evaluate what we're doing and the way we're going to shape the roster in, early July. And what did he say about Ryan Ellis's injury? Chuck Fletcher said, we're going to have a lot better idea of how the treatment and the plan that we put forward to treat his injury is and how it's taking place and taking shape in early July. I don't think that's a coincidence. That those two are together. That
really, it's obvious,
because they need to know if they need to go out and get another defenseman. Because
it might affect our draft.
Yeah, it could.
If your option, if Ellis is retiring, right?
Yeah. Okay.
His career is over, and all of a sudden you have no prospects for a top pairing right defender, and you have Nemec and Juracek available versus Matt Savoy. You might be like,
going to take the defenseman.
If Ryan Ellis is coming back, you'd be like, well, I can get by him for the next couple of years. Maybe I'll draft a defenseman next year. Maybe I'll find one in the second round. You know, and it could sway because it's that type of draft this year. Also, it depends who's available.
Who's available exactly? What player when?
I'm still begging. I'm still praying that Cooley somehow
I was gonna say I'm still hoping that Cooley drops.
Dropping a 5-4 might have been possible.
5 is gonna be tough.
You know what I mean? I was like, fuck it, we need a defenseman.
I just go on what Steve was saying, that Steve doesn't see him getting past 3, even though he had him like lower on his actual
list.
Know
he had him at 5.
But he said like he's not gonna get past 3. And
he's a center.
Steve. Yeah, exactly.
He's a center.
And that program he's coming out of is just insane. And
dude,
scouts
I'm biased. I'm biased towards USA and TDP.
Well, look at the players that have been coming out of that program when they've had like strong years like this in the past. So,
dude, they're all good. They're fucking all good.
It makes a lot of sense.
All right, well, let's talk about a little bit of news. I feel like this podcast is going to go long right now because we're already at an hour. So Flyers, I'm just going to do it collectively because we didn't really talk about any of these. But Flyers signed Sandin. They re-signed Nick Seeler. They gave him a 2-year deal, which. They brought in Adam Yinning over from the Swedish Hockey League, guy who was drafted by the Flyers in the second round and never really panned out to anything that people were excited about. But I think there is an opportunity here to see kind of what he has. The very least, he's probably a competent AHL defenseman.
People were saying that the largest upside for Yinning is probably like, imagine Robert Hagg, who hits a little more.
I've seen Yinning play in person at Dev Camp over the past several years. He is physically very intimidating. Like he's extremely wide. He's much bigger than Robert Hagg.
Would you say it's just the skating and the passing that isn't there?
It's more of a big version of Gudis.
Okay. Which, I mean, if he can play to the NHL level, that could be attractive, right?
He has the physical gifts of like a Colton Parayko.
Okay.
Like he's built like that.
In terms of like being able to hit and being a big guy that can skate pretty decently.
He can't skate to the level Parayko, and he can't play
or
hockey.
Pass, puck control.
It's not me saying it's Parayko, but that's it's like a poor man's Parayko.
Yeah, very poor.
Could he benefit from playing in a smaller rink, though? Maybe.
Yeah, more opportunity to be physical, right, versus in the European game. So
I think that's what they're hoping for. I don't expect too much from it.
Ceiling, or like probably third pair, floor AHL guy. Let's be real.
Definitely. Ceiling is number 6 defenseman.
Yeah.
When he was drafted, the thought though was he could be a top 4.
He was like physical, but
physical top 4 defenseman. That I don't think that was the case. Again, another one of those draft picks where you're like a little too high for that type of guy. That maybe he should have been a 3rd round pick.
Should have went with Kalen Addison instead. I think.
Yeah, there's a few guys that Flyers have.
Missed out on there.
Well, the combination of signing, Seeler and Yinning and Sandin. Like I don't have anything against Sandin, and he had a good season in the AHL and all that. But I'm like.
You have so many prospects.
It's just not the moves are not doing it for me. The Sealer thing,
whatever. I mean,
I'm a little confused by it. I get it from one end, but
I'll break down the Sealer for you. Here it is. So, this is why they re-signed Nick Sealer. The reasoning is this. So, Chuck Fletcher had Nick Sealer in Minnesota. Chuck Fletcher likes his Minnesota guys, his past former players, at least on AHL deals. Like if you've seen him bring in guys he's had on past teams, for AHL type contracts, 7 defensemen type thing. So like I think that's what Sealer is. Sealer's a known quantity to him. He knows, okay, Sealer can play some games as a 6 if you need him. Probably not the most effectively, or if you're having him there for a long period of time, it's not the most ideal thing.
I mean, it was a reward contract, though.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he's going to be the 7. Would there be better 7 defensemen in the league? Most likely. But, like, I think the Flyers' idea is they probably don't want a young guy sitting in the box. So, like, let's have Sealer do it. And then he has toughness. So if he has to come in, at least you have a guy that can, throw his weight around. He can fight. And then the second year is 2-way. So I'm assuming, like, he'll be 7 next year. And then the year after that,
they anticipate he'll be in the minors. Yeah,
exactly. So, like, as a 7D, like, I don't really have a problem with Sealer. There's way more pressing and glaring needs on this team. So, like, just to get that.
I think that's why it bothers me.
Yeah, because, like, why are you focused on that right now?
I know what it is, a reward, and I have a good relationship with you. So we'll just get done. We'll get rid of this now, Nick.
Yeah,
we want
exactly.
you here.
Yeah,
we'll rent you here. We'll give you a little bit of money for next year. You'll make more money than you ever made. You make $750,000 a year. And then the next year you go back to making 150 or whatever.
My thing that I understand and why, like, you're just like, why is you have so many young guys. So just like, why not let that be like an internal competition for a spot like that in camp? That's my first.
I think they would argue that it still is.
Yeah, maybe
this is insurance.
Yeah, I guess you're right on that. But like that's one line of thinking, and then the other one is, I mean, did you really, like, couldn't you have waited and seen, like, there's always, okay.
That's what I'm saying. Like, what's the rush for this deal?
Like, who's going to sign Nick Sealer, stealing him from under your nose?
That's my point. It's a sign of two people who have a good relationship together.
Yeah, probably. That's really what it is. He signed him a long time ago in Minnesota, re-signed him here.
He shouldn't have had the first year be a one-way. That was like a gift, knowing, hey, we're not going to be that good.
Yeah. And
so you can get paid. Yeah.
Yeah. My thing too is, like, how many years or how many off seasons where this always happens, there's like a defenseman that goes under the radar, no one signs him, and he signs in like August for league minimum, even though he's like a number 5.
And he ends up being like a guy who ends up like making a jump.
Or being pretty good.
Instead of going for that guy, we're giving it to Nick Sealer. But we're a team that really should be taking risks.
Yeah, because
on those type of positions.
Who cares if a guy like that doesn't pan out, because Nick Sealer's not panning out anyway. So, like, does it really matter? Anyway, that's
sorry, Nick Sealer.
Sorry, Nick, but like, team should have probably won another round.
And Linus Sandin, I think maybe could be an NHL player at some point.
He could be a 4th line guy.
Yeah. But I'm not expecting much from him next year.
And also, like, how many guys do you have coming out of college and out of their last year junior? Like, where is he going to fit in?
I don't know. That's why I'm confused about it too. I expected him to go home, but I know a lot of people. He was really strong for the Phantoms, so it's like maybe they're looking at it as like, hey, we want to be a better team. You
know what? It's probably insurance too, because I think Fletcher notices how many injuries the Phantoms had last season, just the prospect in general.
Insane.
So maybe he's thinking as an insurance, like, you know what? Let's get him signed, and like if we go under another season where there's tons of fucking injuries, you're kind of covered. At least you have a guy that's competent and can play for you in the A, in a high role, like probably first, second line if you needed him to.
So let me ask you this: is there any prospect in the system that you were excited about? Let's say people who are already part of this organization, not players who are like Jay O'Brien, like guys who played with the Flyers or the Phantoms, and it can be Bobby Brink or something like that, but who are you most excited about going into next season?
I think the most underrated prospect in the system that no one talks about and gives credit to, or like ever really has on the radar of, okay, maybe it's his season to make the team or break out. Tyson Forster. I think he's my most excited to watch. He has a lethal shot. He ripped it up going back to the OHL. He's over a point a game. And most of them were goals. I think he had like 8 or 9 goals and like 4 or 5 assists and like, I think 10 or 11 games or something to end the season with Barrie. And he was like ripping one-timers on the power play. I saw some highlights. So yeah, just him, just seeing his shot. And just the fact that, he looked really good in the AHL, like as an 18-year-old kid. So, couple of years. He's going to be 20, I think 20 going into next season. So a couple more years, added
Mhm.
some muscle. We'll see what he can do, and if he cracks the team out of camp or gives management a big decision to make, let's say, and if they want to put him on the team. I know Dale Hawerchuk, he was like really high on him before he passed away. And I think one of the stories was behind Forster getting drafted. That was a funny thing. I remember watching on draft day on Sportsnet. They have Sam Cosentino, who's one of their big draft guys,
Mhm.
and he had Forster placed out of the first round. And Dale Hawerchuk called Sam Cosentino, and he was talking about this, and he got ripped up by Dale Hawerchuk on why he dropped Tyson Forster from his mock draft list because he said Forster's going to be a player. I know he's going to be good. He's going to make it in the NHL and be like a scorer. I can tell. That's what Dale Hawerchuk said. And
Yeah.
he was like pissed off. And he said that was like a memory of Hawerchuk after he passed away that Cosentino brought up on the broadcast. I thought that was really cool. And I go back to that thinking like, you know what, Dale Hawerchuk, one of the best to ever play, one of the top 100 NHL players ever. He must, have some sort of insight or something that he sees within his game that maybe some people aren't seeing or aren't looking forward to. But I think he's one of the lost guys in the shuffle that, people say, oh, the Flyers prospect pool is trash. You don't have any high-end guys. I mean, I think he could project to be a first-line winger if everything goes right for him. So
I like that answer a lot. And it's almost it's so unfortunate he lost so much time with that injury because he probably would have been a pretty good player for the Phantoms this year, and we could have been getting excited.
Probably would have got called up with all the injuries.
Yeah, and we could have got excited about like a full season with him. But this is kind of what I was talking about. Is like, so my guy is Bobby Brink. Though you can make a case that it's Forster.
I'm excited for Wisdom too, to be honest, because he played really well this season.
I've heard. I heard that he actually outplayed what's his name, Shane Wright.
That's what Steve was saying last week.
Yeah, several times. But I just think Bobby Brink's got like an elite skill set. It'd be nice to see if potentially he could pan out to be more. But this is actually kind of the problem, right? You look at Forster, Bobby Brink, and again, we're not at this point yet, but maybe we'll be there at the end of this season. Bobby Brink, Tyson Forster, Cam Atkinson, TK, Wade Allison,
Tippett, Lindblom,
Farabee. There's not a huge difference between a lot of these guys.
Someone's got to go. Someone's got to stay.
Farabee, we know, will probably be a top line guy.
Yeah.
We hope TK, we can get back to that point. Atkinson's like a second line guy. Tippett is right now not, but hopefully he can be a second or a first line guy. They're all kind of in that bunch, and we need to define those positions.
Well, yeah, because you don't know yet what those guys are. Then you have like the Wisdom, Forster guys that are really like really raw or not polished. So
and then they come up. It's like, but we need to start defining what this core will be. So when Tyson Forster is ready for the NHL, maybe it's next year, he comes into that third line right wing slot where he's not a core piece of the team yet because he's a rookie.
There's not that pressure, yeah.
But he benefits because the third line position is set and the spot above him is set. And the second line center is set, right? And like the other more replaceable guys are still pretty good, but the other core around knows how to play together and buy in and work on the same system. It's like that's the stuff I think we need to make sure.
Well, yeah, just the structure, and then also you don't want to be putting too much pressure on your young guys coming straight into the NHL because sometimes that's how they lose their game, right? Like it's a hard league to play in, and when you're coming in for the first time, there's a lot of adjustments to be made. So it's better be eased in a third line role, playing with a veteran center like a Kevin Hayes versus playing with like Morgan Frost. You know what I mean? Which is what was happening last season with a lot of these debuts.
Just a combination of shit.
Pretty much, and that's actually another guy I'm interested to see. To be honest,
because he finished strong. He finished
strong, and then I think that interview Jason had with him on Flyers Daily was interesting. They had like a 15-minute conversation. He was just saying how at the beginning of the year he wasn't confident in himself that he was an NHL player, but now at the end of this season he knows he's an NHL player and he's a pro and he knows how to be a pro, and that's going to carry into him for next season. So I thought that was telling because it shows that there's a progression and that he's really just a young guy. He's only 23 years old. So there's still a lot of room to grow. And when you miss a full season like he did, there's even more room to grow. So it'll be interesting to see how he plays next season.
And
him and Tippett together.
I was actually going to say, I guess it's like hard for me to consider either one of them prospects. But if we did consider them, I would say even tip it above Bobby Brink for me because I think he's a big boomer bust type of guy. Like if he can pan out, he might be that star player we need.
Well, he led the team in scoring chances when they acquired him. He just didn't score in a lot of them.
Like imagine Owen Tippett makes a big jump and he's a first line center, and then Konechny or a first line winger, and Konechny plays the second line. And then Atkinson's third line. Wow, is that a comfortable position to be in on the right hand side?
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? But right now, all those guys are about negligible.
Yeah.
Tippett's got the potential, but he hasn't done it. The other two guys are obviously better players than him, but neither one of them have hit a very high ceiling.
You could argue Atkinson was there, but he's dropping.
Exactly. He's at the end of his career. So it's like we just don't have that number one guy. We have like 3 middle 6 dudes right now. And TK has hit that point once in his career. If he can get back to it, that would be huge for this team. So any one of those two guys, if either one of them makes a jump next year, it'd be huge for the team. Definitely. So let's talk about who could lead this potential change. There's been a lot of head coach talk. Barry Trotz initially was rumored. I don't even know what happened in the end. I think had a conversation.
So basically, this is what happened. So
Flyers pitched him.
Yeah, it got reported by Anthony Sanfilippo that they were going to have an interview last week. They did not have the interview, but they spoke on Friday. So I'm assuming they spoke to talk about when they're going to interview or what kind of, they're expecting for an interview, something along those lines. Yeah. And I mean, for me, that made sense. People were losing their minds. Oh my God, the Flyers are fucking up again. They're not interviewing Barry Trotz when they're supposed to. I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, any job I've ever worked at or any company I've ever worked at, who does job interviews on a Friday? That's the first thing. So even the Flyers aren't going to be doing stuff like that, in my opinion. Usually you don't interview for a job on a Friday. So whatever, they, there was rumors that they did talk. Elliot Friedman confirmed that they're interviewing at some point this week to the end of the week. So I'm assuming either tomorrow.
Well, he's probably in his mind, I don't have any rush. The season's not even over yet.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's wait till the season is over and everything pans out.
So he's gonna be interviewed. Has not yet. Tortorella has interviewed. Actually, that was yesterday.
He hasn't been working for a while. That makes sense.
Which makes a lot of sense. And an interesting thing that you can't probably say a lot because there's confidentiality with an interview, stuff like that. But somebody asked him, how the interview was or something along those lines. I think it was on ESPN. He said, "Well, I can't really speak to that. I had an interview and I'll leave it at that," which is professional because, you can't speak about what you talked about in an interview with a future potential employer, which makes sense. Doesn't mean that he doesn't want to come here. Him saying leave it at that means that, we had our interview. They're still in the process of vetting candidates.
This is why I don't, this is why I don't want Tortorella because no, maybe I'm wrong about this because I could see a positive side, but it's going to be such a sideshow.
Oh yeah,
with him, it's the media here is already hops on everything.
Yeah,
and he's gonna say one thing, and everybody's gonna freak out. And if we're losing, and he has a temper. At the same time, I was it also distracts away from the players.
Well, that's what players love Tortorella, and they love playing for him. And Atkinson, I think, got into this.
Yeah, they leave the players alone and just go after Tortorella, which is what Pronger used to do too.
Exactly, which is smart. It's smart tactic because the players, all the heat deflects off them onto the coach.
Yeah, dude.
And Tortorella has a bad rap for the fact that people think he, other than that short stint he had in Vancouver, every other coaching stint is 6 years plus. Yeah. So I don't know where the narrative is that he's only around for a couple of years and he burns out. It's not
because he burns out with the media.
Yeah, he doesn't burn out with the actual fucking team though. Right. That's what matters.
So that's why I don't want him, is because I don't want the drama that comes with him.
Fair enough. I think he'd be a good coach. I don't know if it's what they need for their young guys, but he'd get them to be way better and more competitive. And he'd put a structure in. I'm
open for a lot, but I hear you. I'm not gonna cry if he's our coach, but he's not my top choice. He's not even in my top 3.
Fair enough.
But it also, I could understand, and I'd be like, okay, well, let's see what he does. But,
and then an interesting name as well that got mentioned, and this was on 32 Thoughts podcast, is the Flyers are looking to, interview, or they're interested in Kirk Mueller, which that's an interesting
coach. Who did he coach?
hire to me. I believe Montreal.
That's
Like
what
he
I
was
thought.
he's the assistant for Montreal. I think they let him go. I
And he's
don't.
interviewing with Winnipeg too. I think you mentioned
Yeah,
as well.
Winnipeg as well. They're supposedly interest with Winnipeg as well.
So what does that tell you? That means Barry Trott's not locked up there either, yo.
No, oh yeah, he was head coach of the Hurricanes. That's who you're thinking of, from
Hurricanes.
2011 to 2014, and they did not do well. But once again, I mean, that was a bad team when he coached them, and he was like a rookie head coach. So usually, rookie head coaches don't have the most success.
Yeah.
That's most of them. And then, I mean, you have some other, Trotz is the ideal candidate that everybody's looking for. I think that's going to be more drawn out than you think, because there's a lot of teams that are still in the playoffs that I think that if they lose might consider a change. Like, for example, like if Colorado loses, would they bring in Barry Trotz over Jared Bednar? Like, I could see something like that. So you never know. Like, if you're Trotz, I don't think he's making a decision until after the playoffs are over. Unless somebody totally blows him out of the water. And why would you, right? I mean, when you're such a high regarded candidate, you might as well wait and just see what everybody brings and offers you. So
yeah, I mean, we're probably going to offer the most amount of money.
Yeah, exactly. I agree there.
We're definitely one of the wealthiest teams in the NHL, not just from profitability standpoint, but ownership.
Yeah.
So we will offer either the most money or tied for the most.
My thing with Trotz that I wonder how much of this is a factor in who hires him, is there was rumors that he wanted, some sort of management role or say in player personnel. I don't know if the Flyers are willing to give that to him.
I don't think I'm willing to give that to him.
Personally, I would not. But I mean, if you're him, though, I'm saying, look at it through his eyes, he's probably thinking to himself, well, I've coached teams, I've won the cup. I want this, like the next step for me. I want to get into management, right? So I'm wondering,
but it's complicated. Managing is complicated.
No, of course. I'm just wondering if for him, like, whatever team, is he thinking in the back of his head, whatever team gives me that and opens that door for me, that's what I'm going with no matter what. I wonder if that's something that's on the back of his mind.
It's possible. Then I honestly, if I was in Fletcher's shoes and that's what he wanted, I'd say no and I'd move on to a different candidate.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Because it can backfire.
You hamstring yourself.
But that person can damage your organization so poorly also.
Yeah.
To build it in their image and their biases, and you know what I mean? It's like,
that's what I mean. You hamstring yourself. It's almost like how they tried to fit the roster to AV last season.
And I don't like that either. You just try to build the best team you can build, and that coach should be able to walk in there and get the most out of the guys you have. Now, every time I listen to a podcast, it says, "Oh, you want your coach to be in there and be part." I don't agree with that. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about, but I think you should have an organization that is built from the ground up as a team, and the coach is part of that team, and they should be able to come in and fill their role. They don't run the team. They are not the show. They are not the face. They are a piece of the cog like everybody else. And that's the way I see it, is like, that's a great team and everybody needs to be there, know their role, do it well, and work outside your
exactly. And it's not to say that we're devaluing a coach's opinion or anything like that. I think it's more just to the fact that, like, a coach should be able to work with whatever roster he has. If he's actually a genuinely good coach, he shouldn't need to hand pick it, like from a free agency list or something along those lines, right?
Yeah. And again, if you're a great coach and you're proven that you know what you're talking about, if your GM is not listening to you, that's a different problem. Exactly. That's working together. But to be like, oh no, our coach has full reins to make trades and all that,
no.
Philadelphia saw what happened when Chip Kelly did that. He traded away star players because they didn't fit his attitude. He gutted that team. And I mean, we won a championship afterwards, after we rebuilt and got rid of all the damage.
It usually doesn't work out too well. I mean, there's a couple.
That's what I mean.
There's a couple situations across sports where you could say, okay, maybe, but like you're saying, it's usually not the case. Yeah. And I mean, I have no problem if a coach and their opinion is like, well, I think this player in camp's playing better, so I want him. That's a whole different situation. But, picking somebody, okay, I need this guy who's outside the organization. You have to go get him and give up assets, and stuff like that. I just think you're getting into a rabbit hole and you're already chasing, right? You're already chasing what you're looking for instead of trying to build from within.
Yeah. Yeah.
Would you say coaching wise ideal, just to rank quickly, like who's your top three?
I mean, I'm definitely open. Barry Trotz, I'd be stupid to say he's not my number one. I don't know. Like Jim Montgomery idea has grown on me considerably.
His system, man. Like I did my whole article last week was into that, his systems, and interesting style of play. That's for sure.
I mean, I honestly I don't even have that strong of an opinion.
Yeah,
It's kind of weird, but I'm kind of like I'm wait and see on all of them. You know, like Barry Trotz is the only one where I'm like, yeah, we gotta go for it. You know, Quenneville's a great coach too, but obviously we can't hire him. You know,
I think he's gonna take this year off, then you'll see him back in the ringer like next offseason.
So I don't know. I'm with all of them. Like I can say Jim Montgomery, but like at the end of the day, I don't know Jim Montgomery that well. I know the success he had in Dallas.
Yeah,
I know he's doing well now. I'm like, yeah, I'm open to it. You know, but I can look at all these coaches and say something positive about them. So
that's the thing. They're all good coaches, right?
So. Yeah. So in my mind, I'm like, I just hope it's the right coach.
Yeah.
Like Barry Trotz could be the wrong coach too. And that's what I'd be worried about is if he's the wrong coach and he has management control, oh my God. He would just gut your entire team. You'd have nothing left and he'd be selling low on everybody because his opinion on them would be so low.
Oh, yeah. I mean, for me, it's Montgomery's one. He's my number one choice. And that's
really above Trotz?
Yeah, just based off the research I did. And I'm going to go in depth.
It seems like the Flyers are waiting for him.
Yeah, a little bit. I'm going to go in depth. And it's really just based on the puck position, or puck possession system that he kind of runs and things like that. And I went into some quotes and stuff from his training camps back in Dallas. Here's a few of them. So this is straight from his mouth. It's hard to be a puck possession team when you don't have it. Montgomery said, you have to recover it quickly. We're going to pressure people into making tough decisions all over the ice. The quicker we get the puck back, the closer to the opponent's net, the better we will be in offensive situations. So that's the first part of puck possession. The second part is going to be when we have it, we're going to have a plan. If we can't play fast right away, we're going to take our time and play organized and be able to attack with time, with speed, and speed to the puck, most importantly, when we want to go north against other varying defensive schemes like forechecking, neutral zone forechecking, defensive zone play. I want our teams to be speedy with the puck and be tenacious on the puck. So that was kind of his mantra in Dallas. And then another telling quote I found that I put in my article. If you haven't not read that this week, please go check it out on FlyersNittyGritty.com. Another interesting quote was, one sec here. Sorry about that. Yeah, so it was from Devon Shore. Essentially, he was saying that he was a great communicator, just to paraphrase, and that he always tells players what he's looking for, and there's never a gap in communication from what he experienced playing under Jim Montgomery. That he always knew where they stood, and players knew where they stood in the locker room and knew what he was looking for and what he was looking for in the systems. So I think just based on like the Flyers' young roster and a lot of young guys, that'd be great communication wise. And I just think that's a style of play you need to play in today's NHL to be successful, or one of them anyway, that are very successful is puck possession, fast, always attack. And then when you don't have the puck, try to get it back as quick as you can and then attack again. Like almost, defense through offense kind of thing. That's why he's my number one, I would say, just based on that stuff that I was kind of looking into the past week. 2 is Trotz for all the reasons you named. And then 3 would be DeBoer for me, because I've always thought he was a great coach.
All right, DeBoer, yeah.
Always thought he was a great coach. And just the fact that he brought 2 different teams to a cup final in a decade is impressive to me. So, like, obviously,
I think he won with Kitchener too when he had Mike Richards.
Yeah, he won the Memorial Cup, and Richards praised him, said he was like the best coach he ever had.
Yeah,
like
he said that Richards was going to win a Stanley Cup.
Yeah, one day.
Yeah, he's like, that guy's absolutely going to win a Stanley Cup.
Yeah, but I mean, he's a player's coach, and I think no matter who you get in here, and Montgomery is kind of a player's coach as well. Where Trotz, I'm not sure if Trotz is he's kind of a mixture. But like I think the Flyers need a player's coach coming off of Vigneault, because Vigneault is not a player's coach at all. So they need somebody that's like going to be a good communicator, that's going to facilitate growth, understanding, learning. Not somebody that's going to like tell you to do something and then send Michelle Therrien in the room and tell you the opposite. Not mixed messaging bullshit that they were. Because that's what was going on under that regime. It was just a lot of mixed messaging based on like reading between the lines with the players. So we'll see where they go. I mean, there's a lot of really good coaching candidates this offseason. So no matter who they hire, it's going to be somebody who's pretty good and has some good experience. I mean, it's going to be more about the players on the team and how Chuck Fletcher roster builds than it is the coach for me, at least. That's my perspective into it.
Well, we'll see what happens, man. I'm excited to see what it comes down to. I have a feeling probably after the playoffs, we'll probably see a selection.
Yeah. Do you want to get into some playoff talk just to round up?
Actually, I wanted to talk about the draft real quick just to see who.
Okay, cool.
Who do you have like a top? Like, have your opinions changed at all?
Okay.
About who you would want the Flyers to take?
At 5?
At
or just
5.
Like at 5? I mean, I want Cooley, which you know. But
yeah.
I mean, he's probably not going to be around. So if I have to substitute for him, I mean, it's hard because like Nemec and Juracek, from what Steve was saying, are really good defensemen.
Yeah.
It's just like the team needs a center so bad, and I hate to be like, you should always go best player available, but I don't think there's that much of a difference in terms of skill-wise, talent-wise versus like a Savoy.
I mean, if Savoy is really a Barzal type, which from the footage, he looks awesome. He
looks very elusive, and the puck control is like...
And tenacious.
Yeah, well, puck on a string, man. Like,
yeah.
Like, if it's like, you know those guys where like Barzal just looks like the puck follows him around?
Yeah.
He has the same kind of skill set.
Yeah, I see the comparison.
Looks like the puck follows him around, and he's very crafty, makes some great passes. And then, like Steve was going into, like, he goes into the corners, isn't afraid to get into those board battles, which is what you ideally would like. So, I mean, if Savoy's there, take Savoy. I that's who I would want. Cooley, Savoy. And then if Savoy's gone as well, I mean, if Savoy and Cooley are gone, that means Slavkovsky's dropped. Probably.
Yeah.
So
I would take him, and I would take Kamel.
I would take yeah. Fuck, the defenseman, man. Yeah, the defense. It's probably like...
Well, if Ryan Ellis' career is over,
then I'm taking defense. Probably.
Are you taking Juracek or Nemec? And either one of them can play in the NHL next year.
Yeah, probably, man. Because like defense is so important in the NHL. So a center, it's just like a guy that can project to be a number one. Like those are supposed to be.
That's why it's like Cooley's the no-brainer.
Yeah, for sure.
What if what's his name drops to 5?
Right?
Yeah. Because he didn't have a great year. He really did not. He doesn't project long-term to be a better player than some of these guys. He's more ahead of them now.
Yeah. That's tough. It just depends who else is there.
It's like, because he reminds you of Sean Couturier, and he dropped to 8.
You know what? If Wright's there at 5,
he had 96 points.
If Wright's there at 5, you have to just take him at that point. Like, I think you have to.
I mean, he would be awesome. Even if he was a legitimate top 4 pick, top 3 pick, you know, in a normal, like that's kind of what he is. It seems like.
Yeah,
he's a legitimate
if he
top 3 pick.
If he falls to you, you have to take him. Even if the Flyers were picking 3rd and he fell to 3, I'm taking him. Like,
yeah,
I
don't think he's gonna make it to 5, but I just think
I think he'll probably go 1 or 2.
I think he's most likely being taken 1.
Yeah,
80% chance. I think there is a chance that a team, like, what if one of the teams just takes Nemec or Juracek first overall? Like, if you look at Montreal's lineup, they
you know what?
Defenseman.
I can't see Montreal doing it
more
again.
Than a center.
I can't see Montreal doing it again. No. Like they fucked up with Kotkaniemi and went off the board because they needed a center. If they go off the board, they need a D-man again.
They got to take right.
They're gonna take best. They got to take best player available. Which I mean, you could argue
they're gonna take right. New Jersey's gonna take Slavkovsky.
Well, New Jersey said they're open for business on the 2nd pick, whatever that means.
Yeah, but that means they don't see any of the players that different, which they're not. Yeah. And they have, again, they're pretty backed up at center. Like, they could go Cooley. They could, but they can play Slavkovsky with Hughes or Hischier.
If you're the Flyers, here's a scenario for you.
Or you can grab Juracek or Nemec.
If you're the Flyers and New Jersey calls you and says, well, we'll trade 2 for 5 and then throw something else in that we might want. Fuck, I don't know what to throw in. This is the best scenario.
It would be expensive.
Would you do it?
Depends what the cost is.
Depends what the cost. Would you trade? Okay, so that 20.
I would take Cooley.
The 2024 first rounder you got from the Giroux trade. Would you trade it? That's Florida's pick, mind you.
So that and the number 5.
to go to number
for the
2?
number 2.
Yeah.
Good question.
That's a hard one, right? I was thinking about it the other day. I'm like,
That's probably a realistic scenario.
Yeah, it is.
That it would take one of your first round picks.
Yeah. I wouldn't trade next year's. If they said 2023, then hell no.
No.
But if they go 2024, then sure.
To move up 3 slots to
and you guarantee Cooley in that situation.
So I think I would do it. Do I think the Flyers would do it? I don't know, because I don't know if they are as high on Cooley as I am.
Yeah.
Like for all we know, like Kamel could be number 1 on their list.
Yeah, it could be. Which
Elias Pettersson was number 1 on Vancouver's list.
Yeah, but I'm like Kamel has tons of talent, so like I wouldn't put it past them that they have him ranked that high, right? And you have Sammy Kapanen, who's
if he didn't get injured and he continued to score and he put up 25 goals,
that'd be a number 1 consideration.
If he put up 25 goals and you see Slavkovsky with his 5 goals in the same league,
yeah. Oof.
He didn't have injuries. Kamel just like got slowed down.
Steve had him as his number 2.
Number 2.
Yeah.
Behind Wright. And dude, in my opinion, if you really push Steve, I think you could get him to say that he thinks Kamel is going to be a better player in the NHL.
Well, I agree. Well, because he talked up like all the reasons why Wright didn't have the best season. So I think he views it.
He said he's not even the best player on his own team.
No, which is not a good sign, really. But who knows? It's interesting. I mean, man, wouldn't that be crazy in Montreal? They get number 1, and then Shane Wright to be a total bust.
Wright just seems like warning signs to me of a guy you do not want to take first overall. Because like if he turns into Jordan Staal, it's great. Jordan Staal is a great defensive center.
That's not what Montreal needs right now.
It's also not a first overall pick guy.
No.
It's a guy that if you get at 15, you're walking away with a huge smile on
your face. Whereas, I mean, for Pittsburgh at that point, it didn't matter because they already had Crosby and Malkin. So
but that's what I'm saying. It's a guy you'd be thrilled to have on your team, like Scott Lawton, right? Everybody wants Scott Lawton on their team. There's not a team in the league that doesn't want Scott Lawton on their team. You can use him almost everywhere. He's good at almost everything. He'll play every role for you. But again, like, would you rather have Scott Lawton or would you rather have Mike Richards?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, fair point.
Mike Richards, right?
100%.
Would you rather have Jordan Staal or would you rather have Eric Staal?
Eric Staal. Would you rather have Jordan Staal or have Mike Richards? Mike Richards.
I'd rather. Would you have Mike Richards or Eric Staal?
I'm biased, so I'm gonna have to say Mike Richards.
Mike Richards in his prime versus Eric Staal in his prime. Staal was a higher point.
Staal was 100. Oh yeah,
and bigger and stronger.
Yeah,
he's a great player.
You don't understand.
And won a cup. He also won a cup.
When I first started literally watching the Flyers, like it's probably
Mike Richards.
2007 to 2006. I was like 10 or 11 years old, so I grew up with Mike Richards. So like for me, man, I can't.
Dude, Mike Richards scored that goal that Montreal Canadiens.
Yeah, that's the first shift before Giroux. That's the first shift before Giroux. Okay, first off.
Yeah.
That was an insane. Like if you watch the shift, he back checks all the way, bodies some guy.
But the game was over that minute. The minute he scored, the second he scored that, I remember turning to my friend and being like, "We won."
Yeah, the momentum.
I remember saying it immediately. I said, as soon as he scored that goal, I went, "Game over."
That was.
I said, "There." You listen to that crowd. You saw the way he just willed that goal in. And you're like,
I miss watching him play.
Oh my god, dude! I miss that team so fucking much. Are you kidding me? So okay, so you have. Who would you rather have, Savoy, Kamel, or Juracek or Nemec?
I'm
Those are the most likely.
Savoy. Yeah, just because the center and he looks really skilled and like a Barzal type of player. Yeah. That's a skill set the Flyers need bad. So
the only thing I worry about, and so I agree with you, but the only thing I worry about is like if Kamel turns out to be as good as like.
I was thinking for me, it's between Savoy and Kamel.
But yeah. Kamel, there's the ceiling for Kamel is so high.
Yeah, I know.
That I'm like, if this guy ends up being like a Barkov, like one of these,
he might be honestly.
One of Finland's elite top players. That is a franchise changing
Sebastian
player.
Aho type.
Yeah, that's a franchise changing player. And Savoy, again, maybe Savoy's that caliber too.
Maybe he's Barzal.
I'm not an expert, right? The only thing I know about a guy like Cooley is that he does everything Savoy does. I think Cooley is the clear number one in this draft, from what I can tell. But it's not the case.
I would say Cooley as well. Like everybody knows our opinion who's listened to this, that we're high on Cooley.
But I just don't get it. He's the most well-rounded player. He does everything at the highest level
and has the
everybody.
Offensive skill. Yeah, and
I don't understand how he's not number one.
I don't know, especially with that program too, and all the. I think what it is that there's so many other good players as well that are in the UNTDP that they're like, well, it's because the whole group's so good. And that kind of drags him down.
And he's not a Hughes level guy.
Yeah.
But, okay.
That's what it could be.
If Trevor Zegras was in this draft, okay.
Would he be one? Oh, in my mind, yeah.
He wouldn't be ranked at one though.
But he should be though. If he was in this draft.
That's my point about Cooley.
Yeah, I hear you.
Is like I look at what Cooley brings, I go, okay, this is the best player available.
Yeah.
And people are like, well, but the other guy is a Bergeron. The other guy could be. And I'm just like, yeah, but the guy that Logan Cooley could be is like a franchise number one center who does everything at a high rate, not just the defense part. Like, I don't know. I guess that's how people see Wright, but
the interesting thing with Kamel and
so much more dynamic.
The intriguing thing with Kamel and that you have to factor in with all these other prospects, he's doing it against men.
That's what I'm saying. That's what my real concern is that like he's already putting up like 25 goals against men. You put him on the Flyers. Is he walking into the league as a 30 goal scorer? And are we missing out on that?
It's possible.
I honestly think that the Flyers will be drafting Kamel.
I think. Well, didn't Chuck Fletcher go to scout him personally or something?
Yes,
along those lines, which is usually a good sign.
This is really stupid. Okay, this is not scientific at all. But I have a weird thing where the number 37 pops up in my life quite a bit. And when I realized that Kamel's number is 37 the other night, I was kind of like,
I didn't even know that. There you go.
I was like watching highlights of him, and I was like, though I will be honest with you, I think Savoy is actually just watching highlights.
Yeah,
Savoy gets me like pretty excited.
Yeah,
like,
man.
I watch him, I'm like, this is an elite skill set kid. Like dynamic, high dynamic game.
That's the thing. His skill set in terms of what the Flyers are lacking on their team right now.
That's exactly what we need.
Yeah, exactly. It's just is he gonna reach that at the NHL level? That's
so if we look
at how long is that gonna take, that's what you're really gauging, right?
Both of them meet what the Flyers need, right? Which is one of the guys needs to be a true number one right winger or left winger, right? In this case, I'd say right winger because Farabee is probably good where he's at.
Yeah.
Right. But we lack a true top line winger. So there's Kamel, and we lack another top two center. Right. And that's Savoy or Cooley or Wright or whatever. Right.
Yeah.
So that's how we have to think of this draft. And then you say if Ryan Ellis is out, Nemec, Juracek, their value all of a sudden goes up to the organization. So I think it's really you're left at.
It's going to be intriguing. I mean, I could see the Flyers taking Kamel, Cooley, Savoy, Juracek, Nemec, Slafkovsky. Like I could see them taking any of them.
Any of those. So if Slafkovsky drops to us, how do we pass on him?
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Like
even if Kamel's available, you're like,
I won't be surprised. 6'4". I won't be surprised to see any one of those guys taken. And I don't think I'd be too disappointed with any of them really, because they all bring like separate skill sets that look like they have NHL upside and they'll be able to be impact players. It's more just which guy. I think for the Flyers, the most important thing, or the thing that they probably are looking for the most, is they want somebody that they can plug in, if not this year, next year for sure.
Yeah.
So if they're like, they probably don't want to wait more than a year, right?
Well, I think it goes to exactly what I was saying. I think they also go by what I was talking about, right? And they look at their lineup and go, okay, let's look at the pieces we have. What is a definite upgrade, or what fills a definite need?
Yeah,
and then
that's the only thing with the wingers. That's the only thing with the wingers is that like they have so many wingers. Do they want to draft another?
Unless they think that winger has a chance to jump. Like, what if you draft Kamel and then you trade TK for a center?
Then that makes a lot of sense asset management wise to me.
Again, we go back to the Hextall. Drafting Nolan Patrick, trading Braden Shen.
Is that a mistake? That's the only thing with stuff like that, though, is at the draft that's so interesting.
You don't have to trade DK. You can just draft Kamel.
Yeah, that's what I mean. You don't have to trade him. But that's what's interesting to me is like, with just the way it works in terms of, asset management, you always want that new young player coming in on a cheap deal is like, of course you want to find that star with your number 5. But
you should be able to. And
yeah,
number 5.
yeah. But just because you find that star doesn't mean you should trade away somebody you already have as soon as you pick him.
Agree.
I don't know about that. I think they should hold off on that plan.
I don't think that's what they should do. I was just saying as an example.
But but if they did do that, I really wouldn't be surprised, to be honest.
Yeah.
Which it could be good or bad.
Yeah.
Who knows?
That's not what that would be a rebuild type of move. I don't think they're going to do that. Yeah. All right. So let's end on the playoff talk. Like you brought it up. Let's just do some quick thoughts here. So obviously the Florida Panthers have been swept by the Tampa Bay Lightning. That was pretty big news. Yeah. These are really interesting playoffs. And let's talk about the Oilers real quick. You brought up a really interesting, I'll let you say the Evander Kane stat, but obviously Connor McDavid is McDavid Bedard should be kind of real if we're not going to be a good team.
McDavid, he is probably most to do with this stat for Evander Kane. Let's be real. But it's still impressive nonetheless because he's got to finish off the passes. So
yeah,
no one has scored more than 15 goals in one Stanley Cup playoffs for the last 25 years, aside from Sidney Crosby 2009, Alex Ovechkin 2018. Evander Kane currently has 12
goals. How
much
did they have?
15.
Okay.
So they had 15 goals, both of them, Crosby and Ovechkin. That's the most over the last 25 years in any Stanley Cup playoffs. Kane already has 12, and he's only in the second round. So
yeah, if he makes it to the finals, he's probably breaking that record,
which is kind of insane.
For the modern,
that Evander Kane's going to have a record like that above Sidney Crosby or Alex Ovechkin. You might as well put Evander Kane and asterisk Connor McDavid in like small letters next to him. But you know what's crazy is I have another Oilers stat, and Connor McDavid so far right now has 7 straight multi-point games in the playoffs. This is tied for the second longest streak in postseason NHL history.
Really?
The only person ahead of him is Wayne Gretzky with eight multi-point games, and that was in 1983. The two below him, Tom Curry, 7 games, so tied with McDavid. And then Daryl Sittler, 7 straight multi-point games, 1977.
God, McDavid is so good.
So, like, McDavid, if he gets a multi-point game next game, he's tied with
Gretzky. He's probably doing it.
He's probably doing it, yeah.
He's probably doing it. He probably will pass it.
Yeah.
He's playing out of his mind, dude.
I think didn't they say he has 25 points in the second round?
25 or 23?
One of them.
Either one,
it doesn't matter. But yeah, it's kind of nuts. I was not expecting McDavid or not McDavid to go off.
He's on 160.
I wasn't expecting Edmonton to clean Calgary up this quickly.
Yeah, I think McDavid just hit such a high level here that they don't know how to stop it.
He's literally going God level.
It is very terrifying how much of an impact he
can have.
Yeah. And if you're a team that's in the playoffs right now, you have to be worried about the Edmonton Oilers.
Yeah, literally.
Because that guy can
take over games.
Yeah, he can take over games. Even if you're a team like Colorado, you have McKinnon, who's a half a step below, but he's still half.
He's still not McDavid. Exactly.
Yeah, it's like even McCarr. Like these guys are.
So speaking of that, Colorado's up 2-0 right now, end of the first period, so they can clinch. They can close the series out tonight with the win. So
it looks like that's about to happen.
I think we'll see that go down,
and that means they take on.
Oh yeah, McDavid. So McDavid 25 points in the playoffs so far. Draisaitl 22.
Oh my God.
The next closest 15, Kucherov. And then Evander Kane has 15 points as well. So Edmonton has 3 in the top 3
because of those two guys. It's
it's on another level, man.
They are, dude. They are on another level.
Imagine if they had any semblance of like.
Well, they got it. Look what they got Evander Kane and Hyman.
Yeah,
and look at the impact those guys have been because of that.
Those guys are killing it. But I mean, imagine if they had any semblance of like a real like bona fide number 1 defenseman. Like, sure, Darnell Nurse really good, but like I would argue that he's not like On
Clefbaum is always injured.
yeah, like their defense is so.
They have what's his name? Bouchard,
but he's young. He's young.
Yeah.
Tyson Berry has never been really a playoff type
Yeah.
player. Like their defense is not that.
What do you think they would
great.
trade for Von Provorov?
A lot.
Yeah.
Probably a lot.
Nah.
So, just to kind of shoot the shit here, do we think that like 2-2 Carolina Rangers, who do you think is going to come out of that one? Because that's
Carolina.
Carolina? Okay.
In the end, but I do think it's going to 7.
I think it's going to 7. I'm going to say Carolina as well on that. Though, I mean, coin toss for me. It could go either way on that. Obviously, game 7. And then I think we both agree, Edmonton's going to probably beat Calgary at this point up 3-1.
I think, yeah. I mean, I was thinking that Calgary would come back, but I don't know. McDavid's so good, dude. He's so good.
They have 4 chances to close them now. Like they're going to get one. They're going to get one game in, I would say. And then, I mean, Colorado's probably going to beat St. Louis. So you're going to have maybe either Tampa versus Carolina or the Rangers, and then probably Edmonton versus Colorado.
So we're looking at Tampa Bay, Colorado in the finals right now.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah, and then at
could
that
be
point,
Carolina. Carolina matches up well against.
I just
Tampa,
can't. I just don't trust.
I can't see it.
I just can't trust Antti Ranta versus Vasilevsky.
Yeah.
Like, he's just gonna win.
That's true.
He's just gonna put together a performance that
Freddie Anderson's not in that.
I don't think he's gonna come back either, by the looks of it at this point. So maybe the Leafs were right getting rid of him.
I mean,
didn't work out for them, but I mean, still
they made 2 wrongs. Two wrongs don't make it right.
I guess that's true.
All right. Anything else about the playoffs? What about the Giroux comment? I think we wanted to bring that up.
Oh, yeah.
Bitter. I'm not going to say any names.
Yeah, bitter individuals that are excited.
Well, the whole, Giroux picked the wrong team. It's like, dude, what the hell are we talking about? He had a no-trade clause. He can go wherever he wants. You know what I mean?
And
asked where he wanted to go.
Who could have said that Colorado was going to be better than Florida?
Yeah, like you guys are pretending like you knew Florida was going to get swept in the second round by Tampa Bay. Bullshit.
Straight bullshit in my eyes. Like I can't agree on that. Basically, it was just like talking about, well, Claude Giroux could have played for Colorado rather than have a chance in the Stanley Cup Finals against the Lightning. He forced his way to Florida. Now his team is one game away from being swept in the second round by Tampa Bay. That was the tweet that we were referencing. Personally, I don't understand that because that's what we just said. Like, how would you know at that point that Colorado is going to do any better than than Florida, which you wouldn't. So I can't blame Giroux for going to the number 1 team in the league at that point.
We also don't know all the reasons that he would go, like that he limited it to Florida.
Well, how do you know?
There's
like
a time zone different,
family-wise,
easier to travel, time zone stuff. Like there could be a specific reason why he picked Florida beyond just winning. Where he's like, well, not only do I have a chance of winning, but it also fits all these other needs.
Exactly.
Where Colorado,
and that's what people gotta take into consideration. These guys are human beings first, not just hockey players. So
yeah, I feel like
it is what it is.
Negative thing has to come out for some reason. All right, let's wrap this one up. This was a good episode. Vasili, you got anything you want to tell the folks who are listening about?
Not too much. As usual, an article will be up at some point, probably on Friday, most likely. So check that out. This podcast will be up for you all to listen to Thursday, which is tomorrow. So yeah, the day after, there'll be an article most likely about something. So check it out, everyone.
Cool. Yeah, and everybody, thank you for watching, listening. Thank you to Jim Steaks for sponsoring. Jim's on 4th and South. Make sure to check them out. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Please like, subscribe, share this out. It's a humongous help. We're going to keep doing episodes through the summer. Hopefully, we have some cool news to talk about. Yeah. Who knows if that's actually if anything is going to happen fun over the next couple weeks, but we're still going to be doing episodes. And maybe we'll do something for the draft.
Yeah, we'll do some hypotheticals the next couple of weeks, maybe some scenarios.
Yeah.
There's not going to be much on the news front.
We should try to do like a live draft thing if that works out. I know it's going to be in July, but still.
I might be at the draft.
Oh, right. Surprise.
Surprise. There we go.
That would be cool.
Yeah, exactly.
On the ground with our ground correspondent. Vasili, Vasili, what's it like on the scene?
That'd be amazing. Well, that'll be great for us and for the site if we can get out there.
Just record with your laptop, like walking behind yourself.
Who's on with you?
Yeah,
right there.
All right,
man, that'd be great. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Yeah, seriously, this is awesome, and I thought this was a cool episode. And quite frankly, I'm just not into this whole like, oh, there's no way to turn this around. This organization, like, there's stuff wrong with this organization, and I definitely have a problem with the business side, just like a lot of people do. But this can still be turned around.
And also the hockey side and the business side doesn't always directly correlate in a lot of situations. So
yeah,
gotta look at it from that way.
Yeah, but boy, do I miss the days of having a competitive hockey team.
Soon, we'll be back soon. I have faith.
All right, we love you guys. Remember, always stay pretty.